Hello everybody, hope you're doing fantastically well. It is Connor here about 10 hours after I brought the last broadcast to you. Yes, we are absolutely moving at the speed of light here on the Leeds Fan Channel, and we are back with a preview. I've not done a preview in a while. It feels like a long time. I mean, the Wolves game was obviously a preview, but before that, it feels like it's just been... I mean, we sort of ended the season last season with just sporadic videos here, there and everywhere, not really a structure. So we're going to try and bring a little bit more structure to this season's proceedings. So I hope you're all doing fantastically well anyway, and we're going to be getting into your preview ASAP but I'm just going to read out your comments first, though, of course. Let's get into a few of what you guys are saying. Morning Connor says, Adam Ryan, big problem for the club to address now. Bamford breaking down every game and being managed way too much. Time to bring a reliable body in. We'll get into that. Don't worry, everybody. Forest paying $42 million for Morgan Gibbs White. WTF. Yeah, I saw that yesterday, mate. Absolute madness. Yeah, 42 million is absolutely crazy. Apparently Everton tried to hijack it as well, but apparently he wanted to play for Steve Cooper. Obviously he's played with him before at, I believe it was under 19 level, England under 19 level, so there you go. Mark says, wow, Bamford out. Well, I never. Yorkshire morning. You lot says Irene. The title Bamford out. Thumbnail. Connor grinning. Yeah, to be fair, mate, the thumbnail was already made, and then we saw this morning that Bamford was out. I will change that later on. Don't worry. Mark Adams says, morning, Connor. Same issues as last season, but without world-class Rafa to bail us out. Not only that, just to address the comment before as well, we can still be a little bit positive without Bamford. It's not just doom and gloom because Paddy's out. You know, a lot of people will say the writing was on the wall for this one before even Bamford was announced as out. So yeah, we're not just Leeds United, Bamford FC. We are Leeds United. You know, we can compete without Bamford, and we can compete without Bamford by bringing in some new signings. Everybody, of course we can. Joffy better be fit, says Harley. I think the positive with what you're seeing with Joffy, mate, is the fact that he's in training. However, you know, it's additional pressure on him, isn't it? You know, we have to look at Joffy as a young lad, which he is. He's a young lad. You know, he's only had how many games has he started last season? It's not a lot, is it? I think a lot of fans are looking at Joffy and thinking that he's going to be the guy who's going to come in when Patrick Bamford's injured. For me, that's not going to happen. Patrick Bamford ruling himself out of this game on the Leeds United podcast. That is not going to be a thing where, for me, Joffy goes straight in. I think Rodrigo is probably still ahead of Joffy in terms of the pack. So, you know, we're all talking about Joffy being blocked, or you know, everybody at Leeds is saying Joffy's going to be blocked by a new signing coming in. I still think when Bamford's out, Rodrigo comes in as that sole striker. So essentially, Gelhart's kind of blocked anyway. But guys, before we start this, what I want to do is give you guys a little bit of an offer. We are partnered with Betmate this year, and the reason I partnered with Betmate is they're absolutely fantastic, and the benefit is you guys get so much out of it. We've got our own fantasy league. Link is in the description below. There is a £600 guaranteed payout this Sunday, and the pot code is on there as well. FFSUN 2PM02. Make sure you check it out. Entry a £5, but however, as you can see on this banner here, you get a free £5 in bets upon sign up. Use the code 1Leeds5 and you get a free £5. And this is my team for the weekend. So as you can see, you can essentially pick on any of the 2 p.m. kickoffs. I actually haven't put a single Leeds player in there, which maybe just says how I think this one's going to go. As I say, guys, you can make your team. I've gone with Mendy, Cucurella, Dunk, Caicedo, McAllister, Stern as captain, and Jared Bowen. Just couldn't put the Leeds players in this week. I just don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, hit the link in the description below, guys, if you want to get involved in some fantasy football, which you actually get some money from. Okay, so Rafi says, put Rodrigo up front and play Sinistera. Morning, mate, says James. I hope this Chelsea game is a wake-up call for signing a striker on the left back. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out, mate. I mean, to be honest, I thought there's a fair few people sort of making a point of maybe put Dan James up there for the first 10 to 15 minutes against Southampton to make a point to the board, because I fully believe Jesse will want a striker, but you know, what can he do really? The board have given him everything he wants. The board really needs to turn around as you know, almost like the foundation of Leeds right now and say, look, we'll go and get you a striker. We evidently needed a striker, hence why we wanted Charles de Ketelaere. But what we're going to do now is actually go out and get you a proper striker, because Leeds aren't too good for any other striker. We finished 17th last season. You know, we're not too good for another striker to be coming in. It's not Charles de Ketelaere or nothing. I understand that he was a perfect profile, but there are definitely players out there to be able to suit the Leeds United way. I saw Firpo in the training video, but doubt he's ready to play. Bamford, no loss. Mick says, sorry, Connor, but Gelhardt, man, he's 20, not a school kid and should be playing. Mick, I don't disagree with you, mate, but what I will say is, I know he's 20 years old, but when you've got Rodrigo there, who has been Spain's number 9, as everybody always says, and played for Valencia in the number 9, played in the Champions League in that number 9, and he's already scored 3 goals this season, I think that puts him above Gelhardt in the pecking order in terms of what I think Jesse Marsch will do. I think you're always going to go with experience over youth, and I think that's what's going to continue to happen. And Joe Gelhardt, for me, it's a lot of pressure on him. It is a lot of pressure on him because he's barely started any games for Leeds United. As we saw last season, he was still injured. He was picking things up. You know, I think he was out with a bout of COVID for a period of time as well. It's not just excuse after excuse after excuse for him, but he needs to be nurtured into this Premier League season. Maybe where he started last season, 4 or 5 Premier League games. This season he starts maybe 10 Premier League games, 10 to 13 Premier League games. That's progression, not just a complete reliance on him because Bamford's going to be crocked again. You know, that's not a way. We're all talking about managing Bamford, but that's not managing Gelhardt at all, in my opinion. I'll play them both, says Brian. Okay, what we're going to do now, guys, is just going to get into a little bit of the Chelsea stuff. So I'm just going to share my screen. Obviously, Leeds playing Chelsea this weekend, Sunday at 2:00. So this is going to be the Chelsea predicted lineup according to 90 Min. We're just going to grab that up for you guys here. So this is their predicted lineup. Anyway, we saw Chelsea up against Spurs last weekend, and Chelsea were by far the better team. I thought they were really, really good. Really surprised. Thought they were good out wide. I thought Sterling looked very good. I thought Cucurella was one of the best players on the pitch, and they seem to believe that Chelsea are going to go for a 3-4-3 against Leeds. Obviously, unfortunately, Leeds struggled in the 3-4-3 last season against West Ham. We struggled in the 3-4-3 against Brighton, but this is a completely different system in Jesse Marsch, where, you know, we're not going to be exposed down the middle, we're going to be exposed out wide. So Edward, the English version of his name, Edouard Mendy. In goal, centre-backs, it looks like they're going to go to a back 3 with Koulibaly, Silva, who looked excellent, and Azpilicueta. Now, that is pure experience, isn't it? And when you look at this as well, everybody, you do think if Leeds are to play a direct way of playing, you know, if Leeds are to play the ball up from Robin Koch and Diego Llorente when we're trying to relieve pressure, I mean, what on earth this is where Leeds are going to struggle for me, because the hold-up play of the strikers that we've got available, you know, Joe Gelhardt has decent hold-up play. It's nowhere near as good as Patrick Bamford's just because of Bamford's physical presence, and Rodrigo and Dan James, they're just not going to be able to hold the ball up against Koulibaly, Thiago Silva and Azpilicueta. At least with Patrick Bamford, his height gives him an advantage there. That's where I think we're going to really, really struggle, and I think Chelsea are just going to keep coming. Right wing back, Reece James, that's going to be a big problem. Out wide, obviously. The central midfield, I'm not too worried about. Obviously, Kante's out, Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Jorginho. Marc Cucurella, so you've got Cucurella on one side, Reece James on the other. It's going to be a tough one for Leeds. And then, obviously, Mason Mount, who absolutely loves playing against Leeds because Daddy Frank doesn't like us. Sterling and Kai Havertz. So, yeah, I think it's... As we know, this one's going to be a tough game. You know, Chelsea, there's an argument that they're going to finish third in the Premier League. They might even push Liverpool, depending on what they do in terms of the transfer window left. So it's going to be a tough one, and I think where they're going to look to expose Leeds United is out wide. They're going to look to expose Leeds in 1v1 situations, which is not going to be a good concoction for Leeds. Adverts. It's not going to be a good concoction for Leeds, because that's essentially what we don't want. We want it to be central. So maybe in training this week, we've maybe worked on a back 5. We saw a back 5 last time, didn't we? I doubt Leeds are going to go to a back 5 because we don't have a left back. And that would obviously include moving Pascal Struijk to a back 3. But there is going to have to be some sort of system change to really combat Chelsea. Michael says Silva and Koulibaly will have the easiest 90 minutes of the season. Marking Rodrigo. Do you know what the thing is, Michael? I would never blame Rodrigo for that. I wouldn't. I think in some games, and we saw this last season, some games it's going to work for Rodrigo. It really is. But other games, when teams are going to be all over us, you know, so the top teams, they're going to be all over us, Leeds need to have an out ball. And that is the Jesse Marsch system. Jesse Marsch wants us to play narrow, compact football where the centre forward is a physical presence who can hold the ball up. That's why I've mentioned the taboo names, the buzzwords. That's why I mentioned Shea Adams before. That's why I mentioned Ollie Watkins before, bringing them in as strikers, because they are able to hold up the ball and link play. People can say they wouldn't like them all they want, but as attributes to fit into this system, they work very, very well. Just because they're not the glossy signings and they haven't got Enio on the end of the name doesn't mean that they wouldn't be good in this system. And you're telling me that, if Shea Adams was to come into this team, who would you rather have up front? Rodrigo, Dan James, even Joe Gelhardt in games like this, or Shea Adams, or maybe partnering Shea and Joe Gelhardt together so the burden isn't so much on Joe Gelhardt. But for me, in this game, don't get me wrong, the step up is going to be enormous for someone like Joffe. It's going to be really tough. And to be fair though, in the Chelsea game, he did score, didn't he, at Stamford Bridge, which is something that we do need to think about. I do think we'll maybe look a little bit better in this system than obviously we did at when Chelsea played us at Ellen Road, when they just ran riot. The system has definitely developed since then. We have players in the system, and I am excited going into Leeds games. At the back end of last season, I wasn't excited going into Leeds games at all. But if we can hurt them centrally, and we can play our game, and we can be defensively robust, and we can be strong, and we can actually rely on that. There were times last week when, if you look at the back end of the Chelsea game, when they were playing Spurs were pressing them a little bit higher. Richarlison came on, gave them a bit more legs up front, and as soon as that started happening, Chelsea started retreating back to Edouard Mendy. And if Leeds are able to do that, if Leeds are able to press high, if Leeds are able to go in units and really disrupt that Chelsea back line, that is where we can get success. We've already seen it against Southampton, where in periods we were dominant with that press. We've seen it against Wolverhampton Wanderers, where in periods we were dominant in that press when Jose Sarr nearly dribbled the ball into his own net. So we have seen a success rate when it comes to the Jesse Marsch Red Bull system. So with that blueprint, I do think Leeds are going to have embers of success in this game. I really do. The worry is going to be Chelsea playing through that press, because it's all well and good Leeds having 4 to 5 players going over to Reece James, but if Reece James is able to pop the ball into Thiago Silva's then able to pop the ball into Jorginho's then able to spread it out wide to Cucurella, that's when Leeds are in big, big trouble. That's when you've got so many players over at one side of the pitch. That's when they've bypassed our press, and that's why they have the quality to be able to really, really hurt us. Now, on the additional bit of that, what I will say is Chelsea really struggled to break Spurs down in terms of clinically finishing them off last week. We saw that against Everton as well. They had a fair few chances where they weren't able to finish the dinner. They don't have the focal point up front now of Lukaku, not that he was any good anyway for Chelsea, but Kai Havertz isn't really that sort of player. I see him as a little bit more of a shadow striker, a central attacking midfield, someone who's going to come back and link play for the wingers maybe to get goals instead of being that focal point up top. And he does miss big chances. Cue him scoring against Leeds, I know, but he does miss big chances. But what I like about Kai Havertz is that link-up play. It's the ability to maybe add to someone like Raheem Sterling's numbers, add to Mason Mount's numbers. And it did look like Tommy Tuchel really did tactically hurt Tottenham Hotspur in that last game, where he added another central midfielder into that midfield bracket. They absolutely overwhelmed Tottenham Hotspur, and Mason Mount was that extra body who really, really hurt Spurs. So if he's able to do that against Tottenham, if he's able to tactically mastermind his way around Antonio Conte, I do fear that he's going to maybe tactically implement something which is going to hurt Leeds. Maybe that's going to be an extra body. Maybe that's going to be them focusing out wide a little bit more. Maybe that it's them targeting someone like Rasmus Christensen on that left-hand side. We'll have to wait and see. Gil says, I'd love a point and move on. Oh, Gil, what a point it would be. What a point it would be. I think it's going to be a really, really tough task for Leeds United. But we're just gonna flag up now. We're going to flag up now the and Joe's right as well. Tuchel is red carded for this one, and as I've just said, Kante is out. Kante was absolutely superb against Tottenham Hotspur, arguably their best player, who really initiated everything that Chelsea did. So this is what they did. This is how they started. Against Tottenham. So Edouard Mendy in net, Reece James, Thiago Silva, Koulibaly, Loftus-Cheek. Interesting, and this is what I was saying to you guys. They added another midfielder into the equation. Reece James dropped back into a back three. Loftus Loftus-Cheek came in there with Kante, Jorginho, Mason Mount and Cucurella, and this really, really confused Spurs because they just overwhelmed them in the midfield here. As you can see, a lot of it was Bentancur and Højbjerg against Kante, Jorginho and Mason Mount, and sometimes Ruben Loftus-Cheek, being that central player, would manoeuvre into that midfield, and you literally would have 4 players in that midfield overwhelming Bentancur and Højbjerg. So yeah, I think the danger, as we all know, when coming up against Manchester City before, it's Raheem Sterling. Sterling is frightening against Leeds United, and one stat that I would like to see, I would like to stress on this is Leeds have been dribbled against, as I said last night, more than any other team in the Premier League so far, and the success rate is the highest in the Premier League so far. So Thomas Tuchel will be looking at that. However, Leeds United have initiated a press more than any other team in the Premier League this season as well. So there is a bit of a counterbalance there. It's almost like there will be success, but there will be failure as well, and that's what I've said from the start of the season really when it comes to Leeds United. There will be goals, but there will be goals conceded as well. There will be games won, in my opinion. I think we'll win a fair few games this season, but we will also get humbled. We will also get absolutely battered against certain teams this season. Ben has said as well, Mount is a joke against Leeds. This is something we have to take into consideration as well. Mason Mount's daddy, Frank Lampard, didn't like Leeds. He was part of the Derby side, obviously that trash Leeds' changing room after winning the game 4-2, when he was part of that whole process of the Frank Lampard versus Leeds United saga. So listen, he does all this for Daddy Frank, doesn't he? So that's one thing. This is one game that he'll be up for, as we saw last season when he was going through a little bit of a barren spell. Came up against Leeds, scored, loved it, went over, shushed the crowd. It's his biggest game of the season. So yeah. Dan Savage says, Connor, I hope this does not happen. However, if we get beat and beat well this weekend, do you think the fans will voice their concerns with regards to depth in key areas, left back and centre forward? Dan, this is what I've said throughout, mate. I've always said I've tried to keep my counsel with these 2 games, and a lot of people turn around and say it's pessimistic, it's negative. It's not. I'm just trying to look at the long-term view of Leeds United. I don't look at the short term, and sometimes it gives me more anxiety and stress looking at the long term all the time, and it makes me not enjoy football to the fullest, always looking at the long term. But for me, the long term is the first 5 games. The long term of what's going on right now with Leeds United, where we can judge our side, is the first 5 games. It's not the first 2 games. The first 2 games we've come up against Wolverhampton, as I said this on a stream the other day, who have won, I believe now they've lost, 8 Premier League games on the bounce. They've been absolutely abysmal. And then we've also drawn against Southampton, given up a 2-0 lead with 20 minutes to go against a Southampton team who, in my opinion, will be relegated to the Championship this season. So we've got to contextualise everything. We are now coming up against Chelsea and Brighton. Chelsea, who are a top 4, top 3 side, and we're not expected to get anything from, obviously, but Brighton away, who, we haven't beaten Brighton since we've been in the Premier League, and Brighton are a very, very decent side. So these next 2 will be the litmus test, but I always thought that was coming anyway. I always thought in these next 2 Leeds would struggle. I actually said in the first 2 we would struggle as well, because I thought we'd get off to a slow start, but Leeds have definitely proven me wrong, which is fantastic. Hopefully they can do it for the next 2. But I think that what I'm trying to say there is, Dan, I think the board should have a long-term plan anyway. They should be bringing in a centre forward and they should be bringing in a left back. But once again, we seem to work on a results-based thing, don't we? It's not like contingency plans, long-term plans. It seems to be the board can be quite reactive sometimes. They can be proactive, but they are very reactive as well. And it looks like, if we are to lose to Chelsea and Brighton, maybe they'll consider something. There you go, Radaby Leeds. They haven't lost 8 in a row, but they are winless in 9. What I will say, Radaby Leeds, is they did go towards the back end of last season, and I think that's what it was, wasn't it? They'd lost. Or they'd lost a 5 out of 8 or something like that, and they'd not won in 8. So, we'll have to wait and see on. But what I'm trying to say is we just have to keep grounded, really. And that's not been negative, it's not been pessimistic, but there are a lot tougher games to come than Southampton and Wolves. A hell of a lot tougher games to come than Southampton and Wolves. Stephen says, we have to keep it tight and we can't lose it in the first 10 minutes. Completely agree, Steve. I mean, you look at a lot of the games that Leeds played against the top 6 last season, it'd be a real atmospheric Ellen Road. It would be buzzing down there in Beeston, and then what would happen? You get Spurs come in, scoring twice within about 10 minutes. Then you get Chelsea coming down, scored within, 5 minutes, whatever it was. Man United came down, scored within 15, 20 minutes. Liverpool came down, scored within the first 15, 20 minutes. The problem with Leeds is they can't keep it tight for the first 10, 15 minutes. So when you're against the top 6 or top 4 side, if you're going into that game and you're buzzed up, the crowd's buzzed up, and then within 10, 15 minutes, the game's over. Man City, another one. What's the point? What is the point? Leeds need to keep it tight, and we need to make a game of it like other teams in this division do. Other sort of bottom 5, bottom 6 teams do. They go into these games and they can make it tough for the top 6 side. Even the teams that went down last season, Watford, Burnley, they'd make it tough for the top 6 sides. And the longer it drags on, the more pressure it puts on those sides as well. Our set pieces could be crucial. Completely agree. Hi, Connor from Perth. Saw you're live. I can't stay on. So saying a quick hello. Hi, Ian. Hope you're all right, mate. Leeds win 2-0. Fair enough. Tanya says, my friend is a Spurs fan. She said Chelsea ran riot over them last week and they were lucky to get a draw. I don't think we have much of a chance, even that, especially with our fullback situation. Yes, Connor. Hey, Josh. Listening to your stream, commuting home. Hope you're all good, mate. Could Benjamin Sesko be an option? Nah, mate, we're not on that level. Once again, lower the bracket, mate. Lower the expectancy. Benjamin Sesko has been looked at by top clubs. Frank says that Everton game coming up could be spicy. Hope we have another few points then, but I also think we'll struggle against Brighton and Chelsea. I can't disagree there, Frank. I think it's going to be a tough couple of games, and then the pressure is going to be on that Everton game because Leeds have got a decent start for in my opinion, for 6 or 7 weeks. So we do need to start picking up points. I think they've said if you pick 8 points up in the first 5 games, you've got a 96% chance of staying up. That's definitely achievable for Leeds if you look at a draw down at Brighton and then a win against Everton. But this is what I was saying. This is why I was so frustrated last week and couldn't believe people were seeing the Southampton game as a positive. When you're 2-0 up with 20 minutes to go and you concede and the manager doesn't bring on any subs and the squad is the first 11 is clearly wilting and you lose the game. Imagine if we'd have won that game. There's not pressure anyway, but there will be a lot less pressure going into the Chelsea, the Brighton, the Everton games because you picked up 2 wins in 2, which we should have had on the board. Ryan says, I'd be excited to see Rodrigo up top with Sinisterra, Aronson and Harrison. Aronson and Harrison is always going to be difficult to say. Behind that has potential. It does, Ryan. It does. I would be excited to see that as well. We just need to see more consistency from Rodrigo. I also don't know if the system is going to be able to help him as a number 9 against teams like this. As I've just said at the start, mate, when teams are absolutely bombarding Leeds and the pressure is on and we just can't get out, we're not going to be passing it out from the back. Ilan Melier is not going to be trying to hit the fullbacks like he was doing in Bielsa's system. It's hitting the front man and winning the second balls off the front man. Do we really think Rodrigo is going to be able to hold the ball up, if he is going to be a consistent striker in this system? There's a lot of people saying, well, Bamford's out for 1 game. But how many times did we say that last season? How many times did we say, well, Bamford's back in 3 weeks and then it'd take 7, 8, 9 weeks? He was out for a full year, really, wasn't he? So, just getting that contingency plan in as another forward, boring, I know, but it would just help so much. But yeah, I guess so, mate. I mean, I'm not massively excited about Rodrigo up front, and I've got a bad feeling I'm going to be proven right about Rodrigo being up front on Sunday, but we'll have to wait and see. I hope I'm wrong. I just hope it isn't us soaking up pressure for the majority of the game. Don't know if I could bear watching that. I think that's what it's going to be, Econ. Unfortunately, it's not always about Leeds. And I think that's the problem that's the situation that I fall into sometimes, you'll fall into sometimes. It's not always about Leeds being bad. Sometimes it is just about the opposition being too good. And when Leeds were exposed out wide against Wolves and Southampton, when you've got Cucurella on one side, when you've got Reece James on the other, and then you potentially got, I don't even know who's going to be on that right-hand side, but then Sterling on the other side, it's going to be difficult for Leeds. It's going to be difficult for Leeds to contain that because the 1v1s against Rasmus and the 1v1s against Strauch, it's going to be a tough one. Are there any new rumours on potential incomings, Connor? Not that I'm aware of, mate. Not that I'm aware of. Let's have a look. Is Ayling available tomorrow? He somehow manages to find the back of the net against us. I don't think so, mate. I don't think he's going to be available. Guerrero and Nonto, and I'll be happy Rodder's up top while we heal, definitely. I'd like to see Sinistera play against Chelsea. I think we would as well, mate. Hi, Connor. Do you think if we get hammered on Sunday that Marsh's job will be in trouble? I don't think so, mate. No, I don't think there's anything. There's nothing to fear there, I don't think. Mount on our right. There you go, says Sportswire. So it's going to be Mount, isn't it? Mount on one side, Sterling on the other, Cucurella on one side, Reece James on the other. Josh McDonald's in the building, says what we couldn't do last year is stay in games. If we stay in the game, we've got a chance of getting something, but Christian against Sterling will be a hard watch. I think so. Listen, if Christensen is to come back and has an excellent game against Raheem Sterling, that is just, I mean, I'm not judging him on a game against Raheem Sterling, but what I don't want to see is him just getting absolutely done every single time, and I'm hoping that maybe someone like, I'm hoping Tommy Tuchel isn't targeting that. Do you see Jesse changing the system 3 in midfield to get a point? I wouldn't mind seeing that. I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. But yeah, as Chris Baldwin said, it might be a situation of watching the game behind the settee. But yeah, I don't think he's going to change. I've said beforehand, I think it's going to be a 4-2-2 or a 4-2-3-1 system. I think they're both sort of intertwined quite nicely. It's very, very narrow. Yeah, that's how I think Leeds are going to play in terms of formation fluctuation. God, I'm rhyming today. I'm a poet and I don't even know it. I have a feeling Aronson, yeah, great point there. Wuxia, I have a feeling Aronson will be a real pest to Silva. That's another thing as well, Brennan Aronson. And this is what I've said, everybody. Spurs did hurt Chelsea when it came to the final embers of the game last week. When it came to the press, you know, Richarlison came on and they were pressing Chelsea a little bit higher. Chelsea were giving away a couple of corners. No team likes to play against the press, and Leeds' press is absolutely relentless. So my only worry is them playing through the press, and they're good enough to play through the press. So if they play through the press, Leeds are then in big, big trouble. But if we are to initiate the press and be successful in the press, that is where Leeds can definitely hurt Chelsea. And someone like Brendan Aronson is going to be initiating that. Sportswise come on and gave his sort of team line up front 3, Mount, Havertz, Sterling midfield, Georgie and Gallagher. Yeah, you forget about Conor Gallagher as well. I mean, he's going to be off the bench. Koulibaly, Silva James, Kante and Kova injured, so you can exploit our midfield. Yeah, exploit our midfield. Leeds are going to be going centrally, which is going to be good. So we'll have to just wait and see on that one. But guys, I'm going to leave it there. Listen, the press conference is at 1:30, but I'm not going to be available to do that, unfortunately. I start work at 12 today, so I hope you've enjoyed the preview. I hope you're enjoying the lives as well. Everyone wants me to carry on doing lives. If you do want me to carry on doing lives instead of the 10-minute previews, the pre-recorded stuff, smash a like on the video. It shows up in the algorithm a little bit more so your friends and family can see it. It also means other Leeds fans can see this channel as well. Just if you do like that sort of stuff, make sure you slap a like on the video just so I understand that you are enjoying the live videos. If you want an extensive breakdown of Chelsea, I'll be doing a tactical breakdown on the Patreon. This will be the 3rd video on the Patreon this week. Yesterday I did something on Andrea Radrizzani in the situation at Leeds. Make sure you go check that out if you want to look at that. And yeah, it'll be the 3rd video this week. As I've said already, guys, get involved in Betmate. As you can see here, you can get £5 in free bets upon signing up when you use the code 1Leeds5 as well. This is the code to get involved. £600 guaranteed payout, and you can just, it's a Premier League team. It's not just the Leeds and Chelsea side. You've got West Ham, you've got Brighton, and there's a guaranteed payout of £600. Make sure you check it out, everybody. Have a great one, and I'll see you in a bit. Cheers.